Esteemed audience, if you are going to say something controversial, aim that people hate that they love it.
And not love that they hate it. And that's how we love our debates here on Kenya's #1 debate platform. This is the final of Western Region Kakamega County. I am your host, Chris Boru.
And I am Esperanza Kapanga. The determining motion in this debate is energy production is the dominant contributor to climate change.
In the proposition are the gentlemen from the African Government School, Kakamega High School.
And in the opposition, we have the gentleman from Vihiga High School. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
From the Government African School, Kakamega, my name is Emmanuel Bright, ready to propose the motion that states energy production is the dominant contributor to climate change. Let us understand the definition of this motion. Energy, it is power from something. We can get power from biogas. These are just but examples. We can get power from HEP. We can also get power from geothermal. Production. Production refers to the process of growing or making materials, especially in large quantities. Dominant, more important, powerful, or noticeable than other things. Contributor, the plants or a role that takes part in. Climate, the regular patterns of weather, conditions of a particular place, change to become different. This definition was sourced from the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary and Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary. Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, 9th edition. Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary, 4th edition. On to my first point. I support this motion. Why? Because 86% of coal is used in electricity generation in the United States of America. You know what this leads to? This leads to climate change. How? According to IEAORG, energy production is the largest cause of greenhouse gas emission. Now, I know you're asking yourself, what are the effects of having climate change? Number 1, when you look at the products of Kenya, for example, wheat. According to Kenya, agriculture is the leading most export that we have. But if you look at the effects of climate change and you look under wheat, we find that growth reduces by 13%. You know, this is caused by what? This is caused when there is climate change. And then, apart from the growth reducing, we have increase in the price. It increases by 75%. You know, with this, we are not championing the sustainable development goal, number 2. We are not. Which states zero hunger. Another effect of climate change, other crops. Let us look at other crops now. The growth decreases by 8% and the prices increase by 83%. Now, how are people going to get food when you increase the price and the environment is polluted? Come on, guys. Let us look at this. I might not be the likes of Martin Luther King, but I want to believe that this is going to get into your brains. Thank you.
First proposer, you have 3 minutes to make your submissions.
Recent climate changes, however, cannot be explained by natural causes alone. Research indicates that natural causes do not explain most observed warming, especially warming since the mid-20th century. This is why Mwavali Derek from Vihiga Friends High School strongly opposes the motion that states energy production is the dominant contributor to climate change. First of all, let me elaborate the motion to you. Energy production, this is also called power generation. Dominant, more noticeable than the other aspects of parts of a something. Contributor, something that is one of the causes of a situation or an event. This was a research done from the Macmillan Dictionary. What is climate change? Climate change, this is establishment of a new climatic state or a continuous state in climatic changes. This research was actually generated from the Secondary Geography Book 2, page 94. On to my first point. Use of aerosol sprays and pesticides actually leads to climate change. Let's take, for example, how many plantations do we have in Kenya or in the world? We have got coffee plantations, we have tea plantations, we have also flowers plantation. In these plantations, these farmers use actually pesticide to kill the pests in these plants, but these pesticides emit gases that actually destroy the ozone layer. Have you ever asked yourself, if the ozone layer is destroyed, how are human beings going to survive? On to my second point. Burning of chlorofluorocarbons are entirely the result of human activity. We actually burn plastics in our homes. We actually burn plastics in our school. We incinerate them. But whereby the gases released to the atmosphere, they destroy the ozone layer. Once this plastic release carbon monoxide, once these plastics release carbon dioxide, these gases destroy the ozone layer. Once the ozone layer is destroyed, there is global warming on the Earth's surface. What is global warming? Global warming is an increase in temperature on the Earth's surface. If there is an increase in temperature on the Earth's surface, remember some crops have got conditions for their growth. There are those crops that grow in cool and wet climate. They don't require high temperatures for them to grow. How are these crops going to survive? When this ozone layer is destroyed, it affects the climate. Have you ever asked yourself, if the direct radiation of the sun hits your skin, how are you going to survive? Or you're gonna contract skin cancer? Have you ever asked yourself, if we actually continue using this or burning of chlorofluorocarbons, aren't we destroying the climate of our nation? Right now, the world, actually according to the UN, according to most organizations, we are having challenges with the global warming, and it's something that is caused by our human activities, and not that energy production is the dominant contributor to climate change in Africa, because we have got other aspects that contribute to climate change. Mwavali Derek from the Center of Mathematics, Science and Technological Education in Vihiga. I rest my case.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Proposing the motion that states, energy production is the dominant contributor to climate change. To begin with what the very first opposer has just mentioned. You are mentioning that burning plastics is not burning plastics is not a source of energy production. Well, for your information, plastics are recycled, number one, to get heat. Plastics are recycled as a source of energy production, hence producing chlorofluorocarbons. So, up your game in terms of your research. Well, talking of pesticides destroying the ozone layer, I'm so certain that maybe he might not be informed, and that's why I'm taking this opportunity to let him informed. That from the American Production Pesticides Department shows that these pesticides are produced with a positive effect in that they cannot harm the atmosphere. How? Because they will go to the soil, and mix with the soil, hence produces a cooling effect that is enhancing climate change negatively. Moving on swiftly to the motion. Energy production. When we are talking of energy production, we need to ask ourselves in what context? Energy is produced, number one, through industries. For us to have energy production, we must have industrialization. Well, these industries that are being put in place produce the so-called chlorofluorocarbons that the CFCs. Well, when they go to the atmosphere, they destroy the ozone layer. How? They will tamper with it, hence allowing penetration of the dangerous UV rays. When the ozone layer is tampered with, there will be increased temperatures. What happens when we have increased temperatures? Isn't that climate change as a result of energy production? Well, our information being sourced from britannica.communication.co.com, biogas is a source of energy production. Well, have you ever asked yourself how biogas is producing energy? Well, this is done by production of, number one, methane, which burns as the source of heat. Methane is coming in as bacterial composition of organic matter, which releases heat to the environment. Well, when it's releasing heat to the environment, aren't we feeling the hot effects? Of course we are feeling them. And what is the consequence of that? That is climate change. So I'm so certain that these dear opposers are standing here to tell us that energy production is not, it is not, mark my words, a major contributor to climate change. According to IEA organization states energy production is the use of largest source of global greenhouse gas emissions, which leads to climate change. Think about it.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes to make your submissions.
The first proposer just talked about generating energy from HEP. I wonder how you can generate energy from HEP, yet HEP itself is a form of energy. You know, and he also talked of generating energy from geothermal. Geothermal is energy itself. We have geothermal power. We are not talking about the effects of climate change. We are talking about the causes of climate change. I want to correct the second proposer. You just said that we've talked about plastics. And you are trying to prove to us that plastics are being used to generate energy. You are talking of recycling. No, I'm wondering if we recycle plastics, are we producing energy? I just know that if we recycle plastics, we are producing plastic equipment. You also say that in order to have energy production, we must have, you say that in order to have energy production, we must have industries. Members of the noble house seated here, I want to tell you that as you are seated, there is a process going on in your bodies called respiration. That is energy production. I wonder if we are industries. Now, you also stated clearly that methane gas is as a result of burning biomass. And burning of biomass is actually leading to, burning of biomass is energy production. Let me tell you that the main source of methane gas is due to decay of organic matter. We have plants and animals and they die. They become radioisotope items and then they decay. That's according to my physics. And I realized that when they decay, they emit methane, which is a greenhouse gas. Remember, decay of organic matter, and this is my first point. Decaying of organic matter is not energy production. Decaying of organic matter, it actually means that these plants and animals are dead, and therefore they are being utilized as nutrients in the soils. As they decay, they produce methane. Members of the noble house, methane contributes to 12% of climate change, according Geography Book 2, KLB. You realize that the 12% of methane that is emitted by the decaying organic matter, as it reaches the ozone layer, as my fellow member just quoted, they deplete it. This causes climate change. Some amounts of the greenhouse gases are also produced by fossil fuels, still decaying of organic matter. In future, we'll all be fossils. And in some way or the other, we will have contributed to climate change because we'll emit methane. But then realize that methane, mainly it's because of decay of organic matter. Thank you.
The proposers have been told to give an example of a place or an industry that uses plastic to generate energy. The opposers, on the other hand, have been asked. They stated that human activity leads to climate change. Isn't energy production a form of human activity? Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes to respond.
Ladies and gentlemen, what the mind can conceive, it can achieve. which is why I am here hoping to achieve the goal of convicting you that energy production is indeed the dominant contributor to climate change. My name is Paul Muhisa Kitui from the Government African School. Now, in my presentation, I will be very factual here. I will stick to facts. The first question asked on examples of countries whereby burning plastic is a form of producing energy. Now, still being factual, let us go back to the dictionary meaning of energy. Energy is a form of emission produced, and if I'm going into science, energy is produced by any form of matter that experiences any form of motion within its molecules. Thereby, burning plastic produces energy. Energy is not just energy we use to sustain our cars and machines. Energy is also heat. Energy is light. One of the opposers mentioned of citing examples of cooler temperatures. My friend, when we are talking of CO2 emissions, we are not simply talking of temperature. You've told us, you've said, what about areas that experience lower temperatures? Mark you, energy changes such as CO2 emission affect the ozone. The ozone, therefore, allows higher heat penetration into the atmosphere. Things like cold are caused by clouds. Clouds are not above the ozone layer. Thereby, CO2 emissions damage the ozone layer, which in turn have an effect on the clouds. Therefore, if an area has an undamaged ozone and has clouds beneath it, the temperatures in a given cooler region will be cooler. If another area that is still cool, yet has these emissions go up to the atmosphere to damage the ozone, yes, the ozone will be affected and it will be proportional to the cloud cover of the certain area. Therefore, the area will still be cool, but slightly hotter than the other area that was not affected by CO2 emission. I hope I have been very explicit. Talking about CO2 emissions, it has been mentioned by the first proposer of the CO2 emission, which leads to the greenhouse effect. We are all familiar with the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is whereby CO2 is emitted by plants, and with time they accumulate into higher levels, which pose a great danger to living organisms in terms of survival, that is in taking in oxygen, which is necessary for survival. We have talked about agriculture. By increasing CO2 levels, we are hindering photosynthesis, again being very factual, that hinders plants from producing yield. It has been mentioned that we produce wheat and that it has reduced by a substantial amount in the past years due to energy emission. This hinders SDG goal number 2 that talks about zero hunger. I am Paul Muhisa Kitui, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Third opposer, you have 3 minutes to respond to your question.
Okay, good, better, best. Never let it rest till your good is better and finally best. I will Ambrose from the Vihiga High School, ready to oppose on the motion that clearly states that energy production is the dominant contributor to climate change. But before I continue, I'd like to answer the question that has been posted by your fellow member of this noble house. You asked clearly that human activities causes climate change. Is not energy production a human activity? Let me tell you, we are talking about human activities such as cutting down of trees or deforestation. People cut down trees or they practice deforestation for construction. Is construction not a human activity? People cut down these trees in order for farming. Is not farming a human activity? Of course it is. I hope I've answered your question. Now, on to my first point. Climate is influenced by natural changes. It comes a time in the world when the distance between the earth and the sun is shorter. It comes a time in the world when the distance between the earth is longer. And we all know, according to geography, that revolution of the earth causes seasons. And these seasons causes changes in climate. We all know. Or those people, if the opponents don't know about that, maybe they don't learn geography. Okay. When this happens, it will lead to development of SDG goal number 13. It will lead to reduction of sustainable development goal number 13, which says that climate action. You see that when this sun rays, when the earth is closer to the sun, you find that sometimes the earth is warmer than normal. This is because the earth is closer to the sun, and the sun releases more insulation energies to the earth. And you find that some days the earth is cooler than normal because the earth is far away from the sun. And actually, this is caused by low solar insolation. So I want to tell you, I cannot cross all over the side and support that energy production is the dominant contributor to climate change. As I stand by the words of James Bowie, who said that I'd rather die than give up to my enemy. And I say, I'd rather die with my motion, I'd rather die with my sigh than give up to my opponents. Once again, it has been Willie Sambros from Vihiga High School.
Proposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
Once again, in front of you, Paul Muhisa Kitui from the Government African School. Wanting to sum up this motion on the proposing side, we are simply saying that energy production does indeed contribute to climate change. We know that industries and emission of electricity contribute to climate change, and we have been very explicit on that. They have mentioned biogas. Yes, I agree. Biogas is a very suitable means, especially in cost-wise. It is organic, I do not refuse. But as you have mentioned, biogas contains methane. And methane in biogas, according to a report by NASA, says that methane gas has over 20 times heat trapping capacity than carbon dioxide and traps more heat than carbon dioxide produced by aerobacterial decomposition of organic matter produced in digestive processes, and such examples are termites and natural gas. By saying this, I have been very explicit by saying that energy production in whatever form, organic, inorganic, is able to change the climate. And for your information, everyone here takes geography, by the way. Thank you.
Opposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
Aphelion. The season and time when the earth's distance is far away from the sun. Perihelion, a season when the distance from the sun and the earth is very close. Members of the noble house, these two distances cause climate change. This is natural, it is not energy production. Still dwelling on natural happenings, volcanicity. As volcanic eruptions occurs, we know of fumaroles, we know of steam jets. They emit carbon dioxide. This still leads to climate change. I believe it's true. Now, listen to this. It is very clear that energy production is not the dominant cause of climate change. Why? Simple. In Kiswahili, they say, haba na haba, hujaza kibaba. When I connect and reconnect my point on decaying matter and all the other points, I realize that all these lead to climate change more than energy production. Thank you.
One undoing for Vihiga in teamwork was the fact that when points are stated by their own, one of their own, and a rebuttal is taken by Kakamega boys, one of Vihiga debaters feels like what they have said should not pass as a point, and then you go again to rebuttal, again arguing against your early stand. A case in time is here is Willis Ambrose stand that there are natural changes that take place, and talks about evolution of the earth and goes to give us that it gives changes, which actually is not a fact, because the changes you are talking about are variations of climatic regions of the world that are brought about by these evolution processes, but not the changes we were looking for, especially in the production of energy. So it is important to note that that was noted.
I'm actually smarter than I was 10 minutes ago, thanks to the Government African School of Kakamega and the gentleman from the Center of Maths, Science, Technology. That was great. You know, I've learned so much from you, gentlemen, which is an indicator that you did your research. Kakamega boys have this good teamwork that works for you. You know how to complement each other's strength. And then for Gabriel, you never disappoint. You just never disappoint. Every time you've stepped on this stage, you have never disappointed. You had excellent rebuttal. You tore your opponent to pieces and without mercy. That's so good. That is so good. And whoever wins in this specific forum, just know each of you had put their best foot forward and we took note of that.
All right, I have no reference to make. That simply means I was very much informed. I felt like I was in a class. And as my colleague has said, there's a lot of lessons that I've learned from you. What was really something to note was the teamwork and how the flow of information was. In some teams, we saw one person very much outstanding than the other, and that's something you want to look at so that you sometimes want to be appearing at par, all right? Which sometimes you cannot help it, but sometimes it's by informing the other ones more so that at least they don't appear as if they're not. But I want to say this. The results are out. We were unanimous. It was very close. And the team that will not win, just get to know that you were a very formidable team as well, okay? So all the best. Let's wait for the results.